Greetings, friends. It's Denise again with Denise's Dancing Paintbrush. And today I have another collage for my fairy tale book. If you've been following me, you know I've been working on an alphabet fairy tale book. This is for the letter E, and the story is The Elves and the Shoemaker. It's a German fairy tale. With all the things that are going on in the world right now, sometimes it just feels fun and even right to escape into a fairy tale land. So here we go. There once was a poor, hard-working shoemaker and his wife who lived above their shoe shop. They were always kind to the poor and the needy. They often fed the poor from the village, and often the needy would leave with a free pair of shoes as well. This meant that the shoemaker never made a very large profit, but he and his wife didn't seem to mind, as long as they could do good wherever possible. One day, the mean and greedy landlord came and told them that he was going to double the rent, and it was due in 2 days. The landlord really didn't need any more money, but he wanted to rent this shop to richer tenants. The shoemaker and his wife didn't know what to do. They certainly couldn't afford the higher rent. They had sold everything they had that was worth anything, but still didn't have enough to pay the landlord. The shoemaker had enough leather left to make one last pair of shoes. He cut into the last pair of shoes, cut it all out, and went to bed, thinking he would sew them together in the morning and maybe sell them before the landlord returned for his rent. That night, 3 clever young elves came in and made the pair of shoes for the good shoemaker. When the shoemaker got up the next morning, he couldn't believe his eyes. They were like nothing anyone had ever seen before. He put them in the window, and almost at once, a rich tourist came in and bought them for more money than the shoemaker had ever made on one pair of shoes before. And he had enough money to pay the rent and even buy some food and more leather. Before going to bed that night, the shoemaker cut out 2 pairs of shoes from the leather he had purchased that he intended to sew the next day. That night, again, the 3 clever young elves came and sewed the 2 new pairs of shoes for the shoemaker. When morning came, the shoemaker was again amazed at the beautiful new footwear. His wife asked him, how was this possible? But the shoemaker didn't know and didn't question their good fortune. This time he placed them in the window, and before morning was over, they both sold for a lot of money. Now the shoemaker had enough to pay his rent for 6 months and to buy more leather. That evening, he cut out a dozen pairs of shoes before he went to bed. During the night, the helpful young elves returned and busily sewed a dozen pairs of shoes for the kind shoemaker. They made ladies' shoes, men's shoes, children's shoes, shoes in all sizes and styles. And in the morning, the shoemaker was very pleased to see 12 beautiful new pairs of shoes waiting to be sold. His wife just couldn't get over how fast so many shoes were made and tried to imagine how it could have been done. The shoemaker placed the new shoes in the window, and that day they all sold. This time, the shoemaker bought the property for his shop, and so no landlord could ever again throw them out. And then he bought more leather. He spent the better part of the afternoon cutting out several dozen pairs of shoes, so he would sew them the next day. and then he went to bed. However, that night, the curiosity of the wife got the better of her. She could not sleep. She wanted to know how the shoes were being made in the middle of the night, and so she crept down to the shop from her bedroom to peek at whoever might have been helping them. When she opened the door, there were the 3 young elves busily making shoes faster than one could see. When she made a little gasp at the sight of them, they heard her and immediately disappeared. After that, the elves never came again, but the shoemaker sold the shoes, and they had made enough that he and his wife had enough to never have to worry about money again. Isn't that a clever story? I do hope that you enjoyed this one, and I hope that you are staying safe and that you are all well, my dear friends. Thanks for watching. Check out some of my links below and do come again. Bye now.